Hey everyone, it's time for 3 at 3 on Solar PV, and we're talking Trump today. I'm Jenn Runyon, Chief Editor of Renewable Energy World.
I'm Paula Mintz, Chief Market Research Analyst, SPV Market Research.
Great. Hi, Paula. So wow, what a week for renewables, what a week for the country, big changes.
What a week for the climate.
What a week for the climate. Okay, our 3 topics for today, we're going to stick on Trump, but we're going to talk about 3 different things that may change or probably will change under his administration. So we've got the ITC, then we're looking at the EPA and Clean Power Plan, and then we're going to move on to the Global Paris Agreement. So let's start with ITC. So what are you hearing? What are you worried about? Or what are you want to reassure people about?
Well, honestly, what I'm doing is reading a lot of stuff, primarily from online media from other countries overseas, and some from financial institutions raising alarm bells about how the ITC is doomed, right? I put low odds. Now, I'm not going to tell you what odds I put because, quite frankly, my low odds may be high odds for somebody else. So, but basically, the ITC was, both Republicans and Democrats were for.
Yeah,
the
totally.
ITC.
Bipartisan support. Yes.
Exactly. Bipartisan support. It is a law. So it has to be overturned by Congress. I think the odds of it, being high on President-elect Trump's agenda, or him being able to do it, are pretty low. Candidate. So, so of course, if it was overturned, then it would be a disaster for U.S. solar and this global solar. This is a global industry.
Right.
But the odds are so low that I think discussion of this is just taking up space from things that actually are of concern.
Right. And what we always say, though, is that it's uncertainty that causes markets to slow down. And that's what we've got right now. And I think that's why we're hearing all these, all the pundits, the financial guys saying, oh, this is a disaster. Oh, my God. And maybe it is. But I agree with you. I think back to when Obama was first elected and there was a supermajority. Democrats had both the House and the Senate. And the clean energy industry was very excited about potential cap and trade or carbon tax. And that didn't happen, because the administration decided to focus on passing Obamacare. However you feel about that, that angered a lot of Republicans and a lot of the U.S., and those Democrats were out at the midterm. So that could easily happen here, because that is also high on his agenda, to dismantle Obamacare. So we'll see. We'll see.
I actually think that's a really good analogy, because I think the focus on that and some of the other things are way higher on his agenda than the ITC, which again is bipartisan. It is a law. Overturning it is not overnight. It's not a sure thing. The odds are low.
Yeah. Okay. So Clean Power Plan, EPA.
Alrighty, odds are high, as in 100%. So first of all, the person that's overseeing the EPA transition is a climate change doubter. I think that's a mild way to put it.
Okay.
Let's face it, the Clean Power Plan is probably day one executive order overturning it, and is just gone.
Yeah.
I think the deeper meaning here are that states that actually, such as California, that were putting plans in place even before the CPP, are going to continue doing so. But there are a number of lawsuits against it already, and the states that really didn't want to do this are just, their plans are being dropped.
Yeah.
Anybody who think that, I think, is being naive.
No, I agree. I think if states weren't already on board, they're probably very much not going to get on board now. But what the clean energy industry, what I'm reading is that, let's remember, the clean energy train has already left the station. I mean, this is happening, and when the Clean Power Plan was passed, the message was, this is what's already happening. We're just putting this into federal statute, but this is already happening. So let's hope that continues. The other thing that I think about is infrastructure, and Trump has said multiple times wants to rebuild our infrastructure. And so my question to the renewable energy industry is, are we infrastructure? And I would argue that we are. We're a power supply.
But, to counter that, quite frankly, because the Clean Power Plan does end some business for solar and renewables. Ending that does affect us. There's no way to positive think that one. And as for infrastructure, he has said many times, and tweeted many times, his focus is on oil, gas, coal, fracking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are infrastructure too. So yes, you're right, we are infrastructure. And we need to start making on the positive side of that, we need to start making it's time for mourning to end. We have to focus on the Congress right now and the midterm elections, focus on electing people who will see renewables as a positive direction for infrastructure that they are. And
Absolutely.
so I agree with you, but realistically, this is really going to affect us. And just to add on to that was something we weren't going to talk about is the DOE. The person that's overseeing the transition of the energy department is also a climate change denier. The person who will be in charge of the DOE will likely be a climate change denier. So we're looking at likely less of a budget for renewables and solar. These are things we better take very seriously so we're driven towards the midterm elections and changing things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Agree. I mean, the R&D money will be cut. There's no question.
Not that there's any R&D money now.
No, but the government, but the sunshot. I mean, I worry about a lot of the initiatives that we have going for us now and what will happen to those. On the other hand, and I did point this out yesterday in another segment that I was doing, which is, Trump is a businessman, and I do think a smart businessman looks at the landscape and says this is the direction that the market is headed, and solar is the fastest growing energy source, and so in my opinion, which of course I would say this, I'm very biased. Why would you take coal workers who are out of jobs and put them back in the mines when the coal industry is dying? Why wouldn't you train them to install solar, put them on people's roofs, and get solar moving? It's a job creator. We know that. We've seen the solar industry jobs growing 10 times faster than any other job. It's incredible.
Well, there's zero evidence that we are actually doing any of that or have done any of that. And that's one of our problems. No, seriously. Well, that's one of our problems. And I don't think we should get into a discussion of whether or not Trump is actually the good businessman that he says he is, as we have not seen his tax returns. He's made a lot of his living off bankruptcy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a completely different discussion.
Very different discussion.
I think that we're going to see a lot of infrastructure in fracking, which we ignore in this industry. In solar, we tend to sit in a bubble. When we go to conferences, we're in a bubble. REW, Renewable Energy World, and Energy Generation Week, I'm not promoting it, and I'm promoting it at the same time. That is where we're out of our bubble. This year's conference, I'll be candid with you, and I sound like I'm promoting it. I'm sorry, I am. But this is really a crucial conference for people to attend because it's out of the bubble. Right. And so you and I agree on all of this, though I have no bias when I'm analyzing things. I really don't. I have a little despair right now that I'm going to turn into action. But there's where you need to be this year. I'm sorry, it's true. Of all the other conferences, that's the conference to be at because it's out of the bubble. And gosh, I sound like a promoter. Apologies. Mea culpa. But
well, of course, I love it. I'm the conference chair, but I completely agree with you. I'm having discussions with the conference chair of the traditional power generation side, and it's an important discussion to have, and we need to show our faces. We need to be in that discussion.
For sure. We need to start our fight for midterm elections and change now, and at this point, we have no choice. We better work with conventional energy because the tide is not in our favor, despite the fact solar is the fastest growing there are. When you look at that, DG solar is actually suffering right now. And that's, down to the small systems, residential and commercial. That's because of tax on net metering. So we really need to march ahead very, very vigilantly now. And one of the places to make that argument is that conference this year.
I agree. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Let's talk about the Paris Agreement.
Okay, dead for us. Yeah. And here's what worries me. Candidly, frightens the you-know-what out of me. is at the same time as we've elected someone who has said over and over and over again, I'm just not going to participate, China is ramping up coal and ramping down renewables. So they're ramping up coal, ramping down renewables. It's not like they ever stopped. In many countries, China, India, the U.S., let's just call us the big polluters, right? You can, in China and India, sometimes you can't go outside, you can't breathe, right? Yet the climate, and I don't believe the 50% or less than, because Secretary Clinton did win the popular vote by a bit, but a bit. I believe that all of those people are climate change deniers. It wasn't important enough an issue to them. They do not see future generations and our entire planet will suffer. So we are really in a crucial time. Again, we're really in a battle. It's the midterm elections for us. But right now the tide is right at the tipping point, where we either do something aggressively or not. And we're not.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the clean energy industry has been fighting for a long time, and let's hope they remember how to do that and just come on back.
Yeah, let's fight.
All right.
Get up and fight. No fair fighting.
With that, we'll say goodbye. Thanks so much for joining us on 3 at 3 on Solar PV.
Talk to you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.